welcome back to the channel. It's been a while, you guys. Thank you for joining me again. Been out of town. I've had a lot of stuff going on, so I haven't had time to make a video, but we're back now and we got an agenda, so let's go over it, all right? We want to see first what has been going on in the market. So I'm going to show you one article that I think kind of goes over things very well as far as what's happening in the Bitcoin market and in the crypto market, really, since Bitcoin is leading everything right now. From there, we'll take a look at a little bit of on-chain info, and then we're going to look at the Bitcoin and EGLD charts. And that's going to be it for today. Hopefully this gives you everything you need to get back on track. And, we'll make sure our charts are all up to date too. All right, let's go ahead and get this done, you guys. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you follow me on Twitter. Links in the description. All right, let's move. So we're going to take a look at this article. It says Bitcoin long-term hodlers begin distribution, which preceded BTC price bottoms. I'm looking for another drop down to 24 to 22K, but of course distribution takes time. So we may be hovering around this support zones before any drops just yet. So the reason I wanted to read this to you is because you want to keep in mind that these are very realistic price targets for Bitcoin right now. Anywhere from, I'd say, 20,000 to 25,000. It's very possible based on the current price action. We'll take a look at the chart to really see why. Right, you got to look at it technically, but if you look at it fundamentally, then your wires get crossed because it would tell you that it should never get down there fundamentally based on this economic climate. It says long-term holders capitulation phase has begun, contributing analyst address summarized in one site's quick take market updates released on June 3rd. Commenting on a chart of long-term holders, the SOPR, the spend output profit ratio, which we've gone over on this channel before, he drew comparisons to conditions that preceded general bottoms in Bitcoin's history. This included the 2014 and 2018 bear markets, as well as the COVID-19 market crash. Currently, the long-term holders are entering the capitulation phase and are selling at a loss, indicating that the smart money accumulation phase has begun, and the next few months would present a great opportunity for long-term investing in the market. What he's saying now is that certain long-term holders have started to sell. When that happens, it's showing you that these long-term holders who have really been holding up the price starting to sell, reaching a point that could be a very good buying phase. And we got to look at this chart here to really see why. If you take a look at this, but basically what you're seeing here is long-term holder capitulation. This happened around 2015. And then after this capitulation phase, you saw the bull market rise once again. Right? This is long-term holders selling in profit above the dash line, selling at a loss below the dash line. So you can see we had another capitulation event, 2018 to 2019. A lot of long-term holders selling. After that, we had the COVID-19 crash. Once again, we were below that level, long-term holders selling. Then price went up. Once again now, after this huge bull phase, we've come back down under this level. So the question is, how far down below this level are we going to go while long-term holders capitulate before we recover? The one thing that I like is that with the COVID-19 crash being like essentially end of the world economy type crash, right? Everything is being shut down. We still managed to keep it relatively low at the selling at a loss. And we had a very massive rise after that. And I would expect to see something similar back up to these levels here after this phase is over. So let's go ahead and move forward from this. This tells you a lot there. We'll go through a little bit here too. It says, according to on-chain analytics firm Glassnode, major exchange outflows from net flows from major exchanges totaled negative 23,000 BTC. That means that major exchanges are showing that you're having more Bitcoin leave exchanges. You can see that very well here, right? We have not seen Bitcoin go onto exchanges. In fact, this entire time while price has been down, you've seen massive amounts of Bitcoin leaving exchanges, telling you that the supply shock is in effect. These things take time. I mean, obviously it's taking a lot longer than a lot of people expected, including myself, but the metrics don't really lie. You're seeing what's happening on chain with all of the supply of the asset, assuming that as in prior cycles, that demand curve rises up again. This time when it rises, there's going to be a lot less supply to fulfill that demand, and you would expect rapid price appreciation. So let's go ahead and get out of this here. We're going to go into some on-chain metrics real quick. So if we're looking at the exchange reserves, what we are seeing here that a continued historical drop of exchange reserves is occurring. We are continually seeing less and less Bitcoin on exchanges. I've gone over this so many times, I don't want to go too deep into it, but I want to look at this at the hourly. Everything has stayed relatively in this sideways consolidation pattern with the price, which you see in orange, but you are seeing that the exchange reserves throughout that time have trended down, and they still are. They were in a downtrend then, they are in a downtrend now, and you see that very clearly. Now when we go into the daily time frame and we really zoom out, well, what you're seeing is that we have essentially set a new bottom with exchange reserves now based on where we've been throughout this entire bull market since the March 2020 crash. The March 2020 crash was right about here. So that March 2020 crash, since that time, you have just seen continual drop of exchange reserves, and that is continuing. Unless we see a big move of Bitcoin going on to exchanges, there's no reason to believe that the price is going to drop. But I'm not going to lie, this is a very risky looking chart. So you got to keep in mind, do you have the conviction to stay with this asset? Because it is a very risky asset. A lot of the people who get burned in Bitcoin, it's due to the volatility. They either can't stomach it, they sell too early, or they just think it's going to fail. Their mindset changes. So you got to decide for yourself where you see it going, because I do see a lot of pain and difficulty ahead, but I do see a lot of prosperity ahead also. But that's my perspective. So you got to decide what your perspective is. So let's go ahead and move forward. All right. Then we're going to look at the leverage ratio. So the leverage ratio is really giving us an idea of how much leverage is sitting in the market right now. And what you can see with the leverage ratio, this is at the hourly, it has continued rising up. So that means volatility is coming. I see, these are just old stuff. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. I see volatility coming, and part of the reason is the amount of leverage in these markets is just rising and rising and rising. And that is going to enable a ton of volatility once you have liquidity start flying into the market and picking a direction. So keep that in mind, be ready for moves. And I'm going to go into that a little bit more in the TA, why I think the volatility is going to be mind-blowing. Is the NVT ratio. This is the network value to transactions ratio. So this tells you whether the Bitcoin network is undervalued or overvalued. And you can see here for the majority of 2022, we have been in this area here where we've been very undervalued. But now you're starting to see the NVT ratio rise, which means that the amount of transactions on the Bitcoin network have been dropping. But honestly, this is still a great level where it is now. It's just amazing how low it was that this level seems high. Because, I mean, if you look at this, the price had bottomed over here and it's at the same NVT ratio level. So honestly, Bitcoin was really undervalued there. It was massively undervalued recently. And now we're kind of course correcting. But if you look back historically, Bitcoin is still immensely undervalued. Okay, so that's all we got for on-chain. Let's go ahead and move forward with the actual chart analysis. So the charts. Now, when we look at the Bitcoin chart, we are really seeing something very standard here. This is a symmetrical triangle continuation pattern. We have seen these so many times, we follow them, and we've looked at this pattern for months now. I mean, literally since the beginning of May, we have been looking at the same pattern, and we have just been bouncing around inside of it and extending the pattern. The move we had recently was a little bit interesting, right? We had a drop down to around the 28.5 level. We actually bottomed out here at around 27.9, so 28,000. And then we came back up and went all the way up to 32.3. Now, when we went up to this level, what you would have wanted to see was us coming down and getting support on all these moving averages and on the top of this trend line. Instead, we fell below it, and we actually started to get support towards the bottom of our trend line. In reality, we didn't even go down to the bottom of our trend line. Now, we're hitting resistance at the moment at the top of this trend line. Now, what's interesting about this is that the price is getting incredibly constricted. I mean, look at these moving averages. Look at how wide apart they were back here. Look at how they are now. If we turn on the Bollinger Bands, you see another view of this. You see the price getting extremely constricted. Usually when the price gets very constricted like this, you have a move. It could be a move to the upside or a move to the downside. In this case, we're not seeing anything yet telling us that this is going to be a move to the downside, but that's what a lot of people are expecting. A part of me even expects it, but I still think that it's feasible that we move out of this to the upside, because the reason I say that is because we hit resistance on a key level here. We hit resistance on a long-term regression channel. So this was already massive resistance. It was also the 200 exponential moving average. And when we came back, we fell right back into this pattern, and we're hitting resistance on our moving averages. This is still telling me that there's a good chance that we can flip the 20 exponential back into that upwards trend, and our resistance will become the regression line like we saw here. Now, if that happens, that puts us back in an ascending channel. Now, the first thing I want to tell you is that these continuation patterns can continue to extend. Right? That's why they're continuation patterns. They give you an idea of when you might see a move, and if you extend past it, then it'll give you another idea of when you may see a move. So it's never 100% accurate. Sometimes we've seen on this channel, they've been very accurate. They're not always. In this case, they have just been extending for months. So we don't know, is this target going to hit or not? But the target that I see right now is around June the 8th, right? June the 8th, about 3 days from now, if we continue in this pattern and we come back down and touch like the 29.3 level, and then we keep trading here, you would expect a move to happen here. For your breakdown target, if we do have a massive breakdown from this continuation pattern, you're looking to go at least down to around 24.7K, and that correlates very well with the bottom of this regression channel, which you see as the dashed line going across. So, I mean, if you look at this on a long term, like let's look at this on a weekly chart, you can see how important those regression channels are. Those regression channels are very, very long-term channels that give us an idea of where price is going to move. And there are a lot of times that we get support and resistance right on these regression channels. We have been in such a massive losing streak now that we've entered regression channels we've never touched. It is very possible that this is just tremendously oversold and we break right out of it, but we're not seeing any indication of that yet. So keep that in mind. This is still very, very much prone to volatility, and the next time we may see that volatility could be as soon as June the 8th. If we continue going sideways, I still think we're getting close to that volatility, and I'll show you why. So what I want to do is I want to close out of this continuation pattern. Well, let me give you the targets again real quick, okay? So my breakout target, if we do have a massive breakout out of this pattern right now, that tells us our confirmation breakout target is going to be at 34.6. That's where we're going to expect a lot of resistance, and if we do break out that high, then I would expect, something of this nature, something like this. And then we start trying to flip this regression line into support. Right now it's resistance. That's best case scenario right now, which is not saying a lot if 35K is best case, but out of this pattern, that's what we need to see first. If we do hit that 24.7K target, that puts us in a confirmed downtrend and it breaks out of this continuation pattern. Continuation pattern is basically broken at that point. It's invalidated. If that occurs, we really want to see support on this bottom regression channel. So this is going to be anywhere between 24,000 and 25,300. Like that 25K range is going to be really important. And I will be a massive buyer at that price. I already have orders down there. I have orders all the way down to 22K. I haven't touched them. I've just left them there. Okay, so that's what I'm seeing as far as targets for Bitcoin goes. Now I wanted you to take a look at another thing for Bitcoin. You don't always have just a single pattern. So if we shut that off, we also have a pretty clear ascending channel. And if this continues, this tells us that we could remain in this channel for months. We could be in this all the way until the end of July. And what you could expect is that we stay going like this for a while. We kind of hug this 20 exponential moving average on the daily up until we have a breakout, maybe a month from now. Keep it all in mind. I'm looking at both of these patterns. We just have to see which one seems like it's the most feasible. And we're going to be able to see that over time as we're setting more and more tops and bottoms. And it's going to give us a good idea of how long we may have to dollar cost average. It might mean that come mid-July, you're going to run out of time to DCA and you could have a breakout out of here. So this might be a golden opportunity to accumulate, or it could just be a fake out. And then, the best time to accumulate might be down here at this 22 to 25K range. So even that's a possibility. You got to make your call to see what you think is going to happen. I can just tell you what I see as the most likely possibilities and why. And that's what I'm telling you. I'm betting on the fact that we're going to break out of these things, but that's also because it doesn't make a lot of sense to me how people would want to keep their money in cash instead of an asset like Bitcoin when monetary policy is so bad and when economic climate is so bad. There's one other important thing I want to leave you with before we go, okay? So one other thing I want to show you, and we're still going to do EGLD. I didn't forget about that. So if we look at the weekly here, okay? The first thing that you want to take note about the Bitcoin weekly chart is something that just is insane. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 red candles. That's pretty maddening because I think that is the biggest losing streak that Bitcoin's ever had. I have not looked through all the historical data to make sure of that, but it is the biggest losing streak I've seen since I've been in this space. Now, what that tells us is if we're not hitting a bottom, then this losing streak is just incredible. It's history making. So it may be one of the best opportunities to accumulate that we've ever seen because we have not seen a losing streak this high. Okay, so keep this in mind. This is very interesting. And what we're going to do finally when we wrap this up is take a look at this with the TD sequential. Now, the TD sequential tells us when we have good buy and sell areas. Okay, it basically tells you when you're overextended or underextended. So when you see that red 9, it's a good indicator that you're hitting a local bottom. So we saw that red 9 on the weekly back in July of 2021. And you can see over the next few weeks, we continue to consolidate, but then we had that massive move back to an all-time high, right? Since then, we saw the red 9 again. We saw it January 2022. We went sideways. It was a local bottom, essentially. It was a local bottom until we hit a local top, and now we have gone back to the downside. Technically, if we stay within this level for the next 2 weeks, then you're going to see another red 9 here, which is going to be a massive indication that we're hitting that local bottom. So the question you'll have to ask yourself when you see that red 9 is this a local bottom that's going to continue sideways and then go to the downside? Or is this a local bottom that's going to continue sideways and then have a massive breakout to all-time highs? I mean, I think it's very, very possible that it goes in this direction this time. And the reason I say that is because we're in a climate right now where the supply of the asset is diminishing. So if the price action comes in, the demand goes up, there's no reason to think that we will not go very quickly past that $68,000 all-time high and possibly, a little bit ahead of it into these regression channels towards 75, 85, 95, 100,000. Incredibly possible. Right now, all the possibilities are up. I'm trying to give it to you as clear as possible, as real as possible without trying to influence you in any way. So you got to make your decision. This is what's happening, and I personally think it's a great opportunity to buy. That's what I'm doing. Decide that for yourself. Let's move on to EGLD. All right, with EGLD, we have been seeing some brutal price action. And the first thing I want to show you, we'll actually get rid of this. We'll hide this text because we're not using it at the moment. The brutal price action continues. Okay, we are here also seeing a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 week red candles. Massive, massive, massive bloody price action for EGLD. The thing that is the scariest on this is that this long-term support line has been broken to the downside. We have actually gone through our critical support zone and we hit resistance on it and we have dropped below it. Now, what's really the truth is that, sure, that's our critical support zone, but there is no support zone more critical than this one here. I just never thought we'd come down to it. I am still unsure if we're going to come down to it, but we got to put it there, right? This we will call max pain support, because I think that it pretty much wouldn't get much worse than this. That's my assumption. This is going to be from around $54 to $62. Okay, so this is our next support level, and we don't necessarily want to hit it. I'm hoping we don't hit it, but that's where I'd be looking at for our next volume of support. It's only been hit once. It's very, very possible we're going to see it again if we continue with the price action we've been having. EGLD needs a recovery, and the problem is everything's liquidity is being influenced by Bitcoin right now. That's what's happening. So it's very, very difficult to get past this, because until Bitcoin and the broader crypto market recovers, liquidity is just going to keep flying out of assets like EGLD as people capitulate and get scared and sell, right? But the long-term holders and stakers and people that are developing and building on the system, they're not selling. And the same thing is happening with a lot of other DeFi platforms. Now, the thing is, if the long-term holders don't sell, but there's no demand, the price is going to go down. And when the Bitcoin price is so low and it's so risky, it's unlikely to see massive demand come into DeFi platforms, right? Because you're looking at Bitcoin as the leader in this space. That is the leader of liquidity. If liquidity is flying out of that, well, then you're more than likely going to see liquidity fly out everywhere else much faster. So this is essentially a great accumulation time for any DeFi projects if you see that future there. I see that future there with EGLD, but it does come with its risks, just like every other DeFi platform. So keep that in mind. If you pick the ones that you want now that you think are going to be the winners, if you think there are going to be winners, this is probably the time to do it. You may not get that opportunity again. I mean, you might have the opportunity all the way down until $54, right? But if that opportunity lasts for the next 2 or 3 months, then you may not get it again once you're out of here, right? Once you start that next uptrend and the next bull market comes in and the Bitcoin halving comes closer and you start having all of these technologies start become more widely used, if you see that adoption coming in, you're not going to get another opportunity like this, most likely, until another bear market that could be a couple years away. You never know. Keep it in mind, for me, it's accumulation time. The last price I bought at was yesterday at $77. I think I got $1,000 worth, so like 12 EGLD, somewhere around there, 12 point something. But, yeah, that was my last buy target, and we'll see now. I have to choose new ones, and more than likely, my bottom buy targets are going to go between $50 and $65. That's kind of around this max pain area. I always go a little bit below it. So I will be setting up my buy orders there and just keeping them in place, but I didn't really have anything below around 77. That was kind of my main area. I had some that went down to about 50 just in case, but I canceled all those a while ago. Now I think it's going to be time to reactivate those. So we're going to see. I mean, do I think it's going to go there? I don't know, but I think it's very possible. You see Bitcoin go down to 20,000 or 22,000 even. I think it's incredibly feasible that you see EGLD go down to around $50 or $55. But I think you're going to have a lot of buying there. I think what you see here, look at the volume at the bottom here, okay? You see that EGLD on this weekly chart has been seeing just red volume, a lot of selling, On the weekly chart, it's starting to bottom out on RSI. So when you see this bottom getting hit, you're going to expect that at a certain point in this area, it's going to bottom out. People aren't going to be willing to sell anymore. And the people that are starting to accumulate and buying are going to be getting in at a great price. They're not going to sell into a lot higher. EGLD's kind of like Bitcoin with a limited supply, which means that that supply shock could hit EGLD as well. But obviously, there's a big difference. You don't have a dev team and all that stuff with Bitcoin. With EGLD and with every other DeFi platform, people need to execute for it to work. So keep in mind the risks and you decide what's the best for you. Right now, it's still a buy zone for me. I'm still accumulating. I just have to pick my new targets, probably down to around 50. 50 to 55 are going to be my bottom targets. I don't think I'm going to put any orders elsewhere because otherwise I'd rather just buy now or buy more Bitcoin. So that's what I'm looking at for EGLD. This is just looking incredibly bearish right now. I wish I could tell you that I see a big move up coming, but it's very hard to do that because there's nothing indicating that on the chart. In fact, the only thing that I'm seeing here is the fact that we're getting rejected by the moving averages, which tells me that it's very likely that we drop further if Bitcoin doesn't have a move up. I do like the amount of support that we got at around the 65 level, so I think it's very possible that we could start seeing this be a bottom for an uptrend, meaning that you could see a move like this. You could start to see that uptrend forming instead of this downtrend continuing. You know what I mean? This could be that inflection. So keep that in mind because if it is the inflection, then you may not really get any better prices below this like $70 to $75 level. So if you're looking to accumulate long term, then what you're really trying to do right now is figure out what the bottom is going to be so that you can accumulate at good prices. And it just depends what your DCA strategy is. For me, my DCA strategy with EGLD is pretty good to the point where, you know, I buy small amounts over a long period of time, so I've been able to take advantage of the drop the whole way down, and my average price is pretty good. So as it keeps going further down, I'm probably going to increase the amount that I'm allocating, right? So I'm still buying the same amount in US dollars, but I'm just getting the same, or I'm getting more EGLD for it, or I might even increase the amount in US dollars. I always adjust my strategy based on the market conditions. And I'll also be looking at how the project is doing and how the platform's doing. Right now, I think it's doing really well. At least even I, as a user, am still enjoying it thoroughly. I think the NFT community is doing really good there. Even though I consider NFTs a big risk, I still think that the community is top notch. So that's really good. I think there's a lot of value there, especially now in this day and age. Ton of value there as we start going towards things like the metaverse. And you have like High Res is doing some pretty amazing stuff on Elrond, and he's really kicked it up a notch when it comes to how you can incorporate pop culture with the metaverse and with a blockchain and with a community and kind of build your own community. Like he's way ahead of the game. I mean, I'm kind of surprised by it because he's coming in with quality and he has dedication. So I'm liking to see that. And I want to see more people doing that. And I'm glad that he's doing it on Elrond because he's smart, right? He picked the best blockchain to do it on, and it's going to benefit him long term. So make sure you support people like High Res and all of our other NFT community members, and you know, give them that support in this time when things are down and everyone's kind of hurting. So it's a good thing to do. Anyways, you guys, I think that's about it. Let's see. We recorded a 30-minute video. I'm going to try to edit this down a little bit. So hope you enjoyed it. And I'll wrap it up by saying... So let me just wrap it up by saying thank you for joining me. I appreciate you. I hope you're doing well. Make sure you enjoy your life outside of the markets. When they get stressful, you have to keep that stress level low and make good decisions. So work out, Get a pet if you don't have one. Spend time with your family. See some good movies. My wife and I just watched Top Gun yesterday, like the old one. And then today we went to go see the new one in theaters. Awesome. You guys should check it out. Good movie. And, just enjoy yourself. Be good. All right. I'll catch you later. Peace.